very good morning from home. The last few vlogs I've driven just outside of Fife to go and find the snow, but this time there's no need to do that because it's come to me. It's come to most of us actually, to be fair. I've walked from the front door this morning, that's East Lomond up there. So I've come around the reservoir here, Ballo Reservoir, and the plan is to cut through these trees, these spruce up here, and then work my way up through this spruce plantation up here on Bishop Hill and go up to the famous golf ball, which is tucked over there somewhere just out of view, and then go all the way along the ridge, Bishop Hill, and then maybe see how we're doing, but if I'm feeling up to it and I haven't taken too long, then I might go up West Lomond, which is looking glorious this morning in the snow like that. If you're new to this vlog and you've only really been following since the last few vlogs I've done, you could be forgiven for thinking that it's always like this, that it's always snowy and cold in winter, and that cold conditions like this are reliable enough to get out every week in the central lowlands and Fife and places like that. But it's just not true. My days off are Fridays and Saturdays, and this is the 4th consecutive week where we've had a dump of snow on Wednesday or Thursday, and then the Friday has been calm, clear or sunny, and I just can't believe it really that I've been out, certainly been out the last on 3 consecutive Fridays in my snowshoes. And that isn't necessarily unusual if you've got the big snow, deep snow on the big hills further north. You could get out every week and do that. But to be out from my doorstep in Fife and Kinross and to be able to do this week in, week out is it is unusual these days. And even in sort of 2010, December 2010, and the beast from the east and all that stuff, it came and went much more than this. It has been consistently cold. Being a self-confessed weather nerd with a weather station, I do like to keep tabs on what the weather's doing and how many frosts we've had and how long snow stays on the ground and if any ice has been around. And although the cover on the ground back home has waxed and waned, it's come and gone, it's never gone completely. Even if it was just a few sort of patches of hard ice, old ice. And this is now the 25th consecutive day where we've had something snowy or icy on the ground outside in the garden. And that's really unusual. Very welcome, of course. And it looks like this could be the coldest January that I've certainly recorded here since I've been here, since 2010. So it's nice to know we do get notable cold still, although obviously with things changing in the climate, those sorts of things are going to be less frequent, less often. And these days it's unusual to be talking about colder than average months instead of the opposite. So just enjoy it while it's here. And that, I suppose, is where a lot of the motivation for getting out when you do get conditions like this comes from. Even when it's really rank like it was yesterday when the snow was drifting around. It's because you don't know how much longer we're going to have this. It could, feasibly be a tipping point where suddenly it goes off a cliff and we don't really get this anymore. And you'll be telling your kids and your grandkids about when we used to get snow. Who knows? We don't know. All the more reason to get out, plus the fact, of course, we've all been a bit focused on trying to distract ourselves from what's going on in the rest of the world with the pandemic still raging. So it's nice to get out. I mean, everything looks very white, but it's always the way, isn't it? The other thing that's been unusual actually, with the snow that we've had this winter so far, is it tends to have fallen in quite calm weather, and it hasn't all been blown around like it normally does in Scotland. Either it arrives on a blizzard, on a gale, or it falls as powder, very even, and then the wind picks up the next few days and it all gets moved around. We did have beautiful 7 level inches overnight into yesterday, and oh, it looks amazing. It was, you know, uniform cover everywhere. But then, so I went out, obviously, rushed out at 8 o'clock to go up East Lomond, and it was quite calm to start off with. But in the space of 2 hours, I came back for 10 o'clock. I was at my desk for 10 o'clock starting to work, so I did a full day's work. But getting out in the morning, in the space of 2 hours, the wind was raging. It was absolutely savage. Incredible conditions, so cold. Really blowing around, and there's a part where there's a stile, and next to it there's a gate. And when I walked through the gate at 8 o'clock, it was just sort of almost bare ground. And when I came back through there, not 90 minutes later, there was 2-3 foot snowdrift there. And you can see how much snow was blowing through. So it really changes quickly. And while we all like to see massive snowdrifts and all this kind of thing, this peculiar artwork that wind does, at the same time it does make it quite awkward for knowing whether to use the snowshoes or not, which I am at the moment. I mean, it's not to say you can't take them off and put them on again if you find bare patches, which I tend to, but it does mean that you tend to get very, very deep cover and then scoured cover intermittently, and it can make it quite difficult for actually deciding what's the best gear for proceeding through a snowy landscape. As it is, the place that I'm going, which is over towards this way, that's west, and the wind's been coming from the west. So I'm betting that all the snow's been carried over the top of Bishop Hill, and it's all, because Bishop Hill's like sheer, it's like an escarpment, and all the snow would have been brought back the way towards here. So I'm guessing it's snowshoe conditions all the way up to the top. Certainly nice conditions down here anyway. It does feel, doesn't it, that this is the way it's been for the longest while. Snow on spruce seems to have been the story of this winter for me so far. Okay, suddenly into the open again. It's going to get colder, and it is. I often take this route up Bishop Hill actually, because no one comes up here. You can see there's no footprints at all. It's just cutting through the open moorland really. It's a nice way up of avoiding crowds. With just the hares for company. I must admit though, as difficult as it makes progress sometimes, I do like all these drifts. They are beautiful, aren't they? And that's West Lomond peeking through. The highest point in 5 at 520 metres high. You can see how the left hand side of it, the left half of it, over here, because the winds come from left to right, so it's completely scattered. It's not quite so apparent now, but once you get the sun on it later, you'll see how brown it is. The grass starts showing through, whereas the right hand side, absolutely loaded, where all the snow gets transported to. And that of course creates its own problems. It can be quite dangerous when you get snow transported, forms what's called wind slab, or just new layers of snow which aren't bonded to the ones below, and that's when you get avalanches, when people kick them off. So you don't really think of it happening on hills this size. You sort of more associate it with the Munros, I suppose, wilder places. But just yesterday, Tweed, is it a Tweed Valley Mountain Rescue, or one of the mountain rescues down there, they had a photo up Turnhouse Hill in the Pentlands with a big slab avalanche that's come down. I mean, big. And as they said, enough to knock you off your feet, certainly. Possibly even enough to bury you. Because there's been more than, I don't know, like 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of snow up there, and it's all been moved and put into one place. So it is dangerous, even hills like this. So it is enticing. I mean, I feel that urge. I don't like walking when you've had a windy spell. I don't really like spending time on the wind-blown slopes that are scoured, because you want the snow. And it's good for photos, going and getting the snow-heavy slopes. That's what makes the good pictures. But you've got to be so careful when it's freshly transported like this. It is really dangerous. Now, I would normally go up the edge of those trees, and that takes you right up to the top of Munduff Hill, which is kind of where the golf ball sits, the big radar station. That's what that hill's called, David. Everyone calls it the Bishop Hill, this whole piece. That's Munduff Hill. I usually go up there, but I want a bit of spruce forest walking. And there's a nice forest tracker way of getting up to the golf ball. Just head a little bit over there. Oh, it's so nice to be in trees. Snowy trees at that. Something there's all too little of course, in Scotland. Trees, forests, as part of snowy walks when you go to the hills. But hopefully that's changing, and the trees will become more a feature even on bigger walks on higher hills. Although I think that my knees will probably be shot by the time that happens. Well, it's a bit nice, isn't it? I've said it a few times in recent blogs, but spruce with snow on, they are just stunning. I do love this. I love a walk with contrasts. It's one thing that we miss, I suppose, and it's something that got to a certain extent on that blog in the Oak Hills a couple of weeks ago, going through that woodland trust site, climbing up through a tree line and having it gradually peter out the higher you get. Something we don't have much of. So we've noticed this plantation and old farm trees along stone dikes. It's all bit of variety, isn't it? It's nice, rather than it having just wind blasted moorland the whole time. And it's so still here. Actually, that's quite telling, isn't it? The last few blogs, I said that a lot about how still it is, and it really has been. But that's because the general weather's been still. Here it's more still because this is sheltered on this side of the trees, and all this snow's accumulated here on these trees because it's blown over the top of the forest and down. And that's why it's still here. Anything on the windward side, I imagine, is long gone with the wind blasting it. Just enjoying the stillness for a bit, because it'll be cold up top. And this really is perfect snow for snowshoeing. It was milder yesterday. It was just above freezing. So it's all compacted down a little bit, and it's got colder overnight. So a bit of consolidation and a bit of freeze, and it's not too much give. Enough to make steady progress. It's really nice. Just that hypnotic trudge. And it also has, when you kick, most of that's sort of kicking up, that's hoarfrost, ice crystals, rather than snow. That's really nice, isn't it, on this sort of weather when it's cold and still and you get that frost on top. It kicks up like powder as you walk. It's going to be colder tonight, actually. Tomorrow's looking amazing as well. So I'm going to think where I'm going to go for the next walk. Maybe do another blog. But tonight's going to be really cold. It's going to be sort of -4, -5. So there'll be another round of frost. So this snow's not going anywhere. Certainly the next 4 days maybe are looking cold. And even then it's looking like it might get colder into February. So provided we don't get one of those hideous hairdryer soggy storms from the Atlantic, then I think snow's going to be clinging on the leeward side of hills, certainly for the foreseeable future, and even in these parts. It's an interesting winter. Now this is the junction. If you go down there, you get down to Hull Reservoir, down towards Leslie. That's kind of the conventional way for coming up, I suppose. If you go up there, you cut through the plantation, you come up on the edge of the forest and up to the golf ball. I'm going to go down here because it's nice to have provided the trees have caught the snow, that's a nice walk, so we'll take that approach. But for the moment, I think it's a nice place to get some sunshine and some refreshment. Such a beautiful day. You can see there's not snow everywhere though. This is where that steam's coming from. That's Glenrothes. All of that down there, all those buildings. There's no snow down there. I mean, there was yesterday, at the start of the day, but it's all gone now. So it's, yeah, even though it looks like everywhere's gone snowy around here, it's still a high level event, as it were, above about 150 metres at the moment, I think. 200, getting on to 200. That's where all the good snow is. Okay, nice as it is to stay here. Need to press on. It's nice and calm here, but it's going to be windier up top. Every time I share photos of views like this on social media, just a torrent of people saying, "Oh, it's Narnia." It does seem to hold this spell over people. You know, this sort of thing from our childhood or whatever. I don't know, but it does seem to have a hold in our imagination, doesn't it? Snow heavy trees like this, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, all that sort of stuff, and fantasy and magical places. You see why? There's somewhere, I think it's here, because this is clearly brighter to my left. It's not a viewpoint as such, but it all opens up. And given the direction the wind's been coming from, I'm hoping it's going to be laden with snow and be quite a sight. Fingers crossed. Into the sun. Oh my life. Oh my god. Look at this. Oh, wow, this warrants coffee, I think. I only just had a sandwich, but oh my god. Wow. Well, it's a good time to put some sun cream on because it's January, but I burn through cloud in January and it is sunny and all that glare off the snow. It's that smell. For a lot of people, that smell of sun cream is the smell of the beach, but for me it's not, it's the smell of snow. So, snow and sun in Scotland, that's what that smells like. Well, the most absolutely heartfelt cheers. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it's always a good viewpoint when there's been snow, because we tend to get, you know, the west is over there, so it's always quite well protected, and it does tend to hold the snow and get the sun as well, so it's always a good viewpoint, but I haven't seen it sort of laden like this in a very long time. Definitely got here at the right time now in the sequence of events since this snow fell, because with the sun on it, this is the first sort of sun we've had, warm sun at this time of day. The sun did come out yesterday, but it was late in the day and it was quite weak, so nothing really melted in the sun. But certainly there's a lot, I can hear it everywhere, there's a lot falling off, a lot dripping. Even though it's still cool, it's only going to be about 1 degree or something up here, but even so, the sun is warm this time of year, so all this is going to go. So it's nice to be here before that all happens, because if you came up here, I dare say, tomorrow, a lot of it will be gone and it won't look half as spectacular as it does now. Honestly though, if we hadn't had the winter we've had so far, I'd go spare. I think it would be easier to cope with, wouldn't it, knowing that if it was a mild, mushy winter, knowing there was no snow on the hills, you kind of think, if you'd feel like you weren't missing out on anything. If you were still, you know, confined by travel restrictions in the pandemic, you feel like you weren't missing out. But because we've got it here, I don't feel this urge to go anywhere, because I think I've said before, when we get the snow here, this is where I'll be. If there's this much snow here, I'll be out the front door in my snowshoes, wandering around close to home. I'll go where the snow is, rather than where the hills are. Even if it was pancake flat, if I was somewhere like Ontario, if the snow came, I'd be out snowshoeing. Oh, isn't it wonderful? Blue sky. It's funny too, isn't it, how close something beautiful like this, something very wild, continental feeling like this, is so close to the main industry of Fife and Central Scotland. That's Mossmorran over there. So it is you know, we're very close to big urban centres and industrial centres here, but it doesn't feel like it. Over there you can just see the eastern edge of Benarty Hill, and that's Loch Leven just tucked behind over there. I have a much better view of it when we get further up the hill, but it's going to be so breezy it might be actually difficult to speak up there. It's much more sheltered here, better chance to speak. Well, time to move on. Wish I could stay here forever, to be honest, but I think it would break my heart staying here, watching the snow fall and melt away. I'm just going to leave now and remember it like this. Well, here we are at the golf ball, which is what I call it. I know other people call it. I don't know if everyone calls it that, but anyway. There's all kinds of hilarious conspiracy theories online about what it's actually for. But as far as I'm aware, and this gives you an indication, see, Met Office, unless you think that's some cover for something clandestine and dodgy, but it's the Munduff Hill radar station, weather radar, and there's 15 of them across the UK. And they can measure rainfall and where it's falling about 250 kilometres out from here, each of them. And there's 15 of them strategically spaced all around the UK. And it's precipitation radars, essentially. I'm not sure if that means that, you know, when you look at your weather apps and you can see where precipitation is falling, whether it's these 15 things that are working out, whether that comes from satellite, I don't know. But that's what it is. Rain. And all of a sudden we emerge out of the forest and into the bleak, barren wasteland plateau of Bishop Hill. Look at it. It's like Arctic tundra today. That's West Lomond in the distance. There we go. A view opening up just as we approach the top of Munduff Hill. How about that? Plenty of people out today. I can see a few people out the way, post-holing through the snow. I saw some other people wading over in that direction. That's actually the summit of Bishop Hill over there, which is about 1 kilometre away. And as you can see, I mean, it's really, really packed with snow, isn't it, up here? Like I say, it comes over from the escarpment down there and it gets blown over here, so it all collects here. So it's always reliable, provided the wind comes in the right direction. Looking over this way, of course, that's Loch Leven down there. And looking over there, that's where we've been playing for the last few blogs, out in the Oak Hills. which is King's Seat and White Wisp and Tarmangy and all those over there, coming through to Inner Downey and Lendrick Hill, which are further east. What a view today. Well, look at this. Beautiful powdery snow, frost on top. Smooth, untrodden drifts, escarpment, views, coal, sun. Perfection. Makes it doubly sweet because it's right on my doorstep. So that's where we emerged from, over by the golf ball. The path proper to Bishop Hill is actually doesn't actually come up to sort of Munduff Hill, it cuts across there somewhere. Quite a well trodden farm track, I suppose. But it seems that when you, and that's an option, but when you're up here it seems a shame not to sort of hug the escarpment so that you get the views out. Wow, it's unreal. It's going to be like this tomorrow as well, but colder and not as windy. It's always the quieter option coming along the edge for some reason. I think people do like following the path in there, but you really do miss out on a lot if you don't actually come close to the edge. Although it's quite drifty today. But you can see how it's, you get no sense, I suppose, when you're coming up from the way we've come up today from the east. You get no sense, especially up there on that plateau, because that's completely flat up there, and then it just goes boom, just falls off. And there's really, really potent updrafts, and the National Gliding Centre for Scotland is just tucked around the corner here at Portmoak. So often you'll come here, there's none out today, but you'll see gliders going sort of, they run along low and then come up high, and they just keep doing really circles, and you can sit up here. It's a really nice thing to do, actually, sitting up here over an afternoon watching the gliders come gliding past. There we go, get a better sense of the escarpment now. So yeah, that's Benarty Hill, way in the distance. Nestling down here, that's Kinross-Wood. Scotland Wells just off to the left around the corner. We are of course now in Kinross-shire. Bishop Hill is in Kinross after all, not Fife. Don't make that mistake. Loch Leven is in Kinross, not Fife. Don't make that mistake. Poor Kinross. I see so many people who put Loch Leven down as being in Fife. Kinross isn't huge, and it kind of gets overlooked a lot, and so it's got this gem, the focal point of the whole county. You know, Loch Leven, and everyone thinks it's in Fife. Everyone wants to steal it, give it to Fife. No, it's in Kinross, and yet Benarty Hill's in Fife. It's all very confusing. What's interesting here, I've always thought, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing, when you come along here you can see that it's almost like a tongue sticking down with it stops very abruptly, and I can only think that is where the land has slipped in the past, I'm assuming. I need to look it up. I've never really sort of, when I get home I've never thought to actually go and look into it and research it, but I'm guessing that looks like it, doesn't it? That's the land that slipped all the way down there. Certainly all the way down here it's like that. And these processes are ongoing, of course. Interesting. This is Carlin Maggie. It's quite an unusual, quite a pronounced rock stack. It's lost some height in recent years. Can't remember when, but I think the top fell off not too long ago. But Carlin Maggie, yeah, I'm not sure the story. Was she by any chance a witch who was turned to stone by the devil, or is that just the way that these stories go? Just that general theme of women being persecuted, isn't it? And hounded endlessly for being women, it seems. But anyway, it's always worth coming off to see, because if you stay, as is always a theme in these blogs, if you stay up on broad ridges, you never get to see these things. So it's always worth coming down to have a bit of an explore. And Bishop Hill, the summit proper, is just up there, so just a stone's throw away. It's funny, isn't it, how there's just this green band from the Howard Five through to Kinross, like this. These poor people without snow. There we go, top of Bishop Hill. And this is a view that greets you. West Lomond over there, East Lomond over there. And that's the reservoir, that's Ballo Reservoir that we're walking around right at the start. I had thought about going up West Lomond as well, but I think I might make this do, actually. It's feasible, of course, but I've had a nice day. I don't need to sort of make myself too tired. There's always tomorrow. I need to figure out where I'm going to go tomorrow. So my continuation will take us just a little bit further along the escarpment, and then dip down and see there's a little rim of trees there. That's a really attractive stand of larch. One of my favourite little stands of trees in the Lomans. Dip down into there, which is just above Glenvale, and then walk all the way out back home. Right, down we go. Bishop Hill's about, I think it's about, is it 461 metres? And it's tempting to think it's the highest point in Kinross, but of course it isn't. And that honour goes to Innerdooney Hill, which is over there, which is 497, so 30 metres or so higher than here, and it's still in Kinross. And I don't know what all these are doing here, all these larch and a few pine. I don't know if they were planted for, possibly for shelter for livestock or something, I don't know. But I mean, they're very welcome. But it always holds snow well up here, so it's a nice, always like, it's reliable when you're looking for the nice snow like this is now. Really nice and soft and powdery and frosty still. It's always nice to come down in here because it's reliable and quiet and calm. Very nice. Well, this is a nice way to finish, I think, on a miniature ridge with the big cornice that's developed on these most modest of hills. Well, there we go. Still quite away from home. Home is way over there. But it's just a simple case now of just coming down here. This is Glenvale. It goes off down to the left with this cleft. It goes to Glen Lomond, ultimately. And that's West Lomond, of course. I'm not going to go up there just now. But so the walk back's just going along there. So it's an easy walk, really satisfying walk. I mean, you can't beat doing this kind of thing from your front door, I suppose. That is the dream. Just feel very lucky during lockdown, I guess, to have this on my doorstep. I know a lot of people don't have this sort of thing, so I do feel quite lucky to have this. Right, so let's see what tomorrow brings with this continuation of winter. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. If not, stay safe.